I can reach half to a quarter of my town, not instantly, but within a day's time, within somebody checking their Facebook status, at the end of the day, sort of thing. Um, and that's just, that's what works well for me. Facebook might not be as big in your community. You might go Twitter, or you might have a newsletter that goes out, or you might have to create your own distribution channel. And that's sort of what a blog is, but I'm talking about among other things in addition to your blog. Other channels that you can push content through. If I wanted to reach specifically the part of my community which is really into fishing, then I might go over to charlestonfishing.com, where there's a forum and where there's a lot of people who fish in my area, who visit there to check the forums. And so it's just all about knowing your audience and where they go, not just online. I mean, if there's a local bulletin board that you can put news on, then put your news in a bulletin board. Things like that. I, for the longest time, did a simple flyer that I had a stack of at local restaurants. People at restaurants are a captive audience, okay? Take advantage of the fact that they're going to look at a menu, place an order, hand that menu away, and if they're, obviously they could talk to each other, they can have a conversation, but, they've also, if you can put something in their hand that they can read, then they're going to read it, okay? And put a little link to your website at the end of that. And that's a really good technique to sort of grab people's attention. It may seem like it's a really slow way to do it, but I got more traffic by doing that, sort of over time, and people just started to find my website, that it just became this locally known thing, because local people eat at restaurants and guests eat at restaurants. So you're targeting everybody. Like I said, restaurants are great because everybody's got to eat. Let me actually show you a live version of this. This is what is known as an iGoogle account. If you have a Google account, you can log in and go to igoogle.com, and you will notice that you have one of these. Yours won't be all set up, but I would highly recommend setting this up. This is sort of a McClellanville radar. I've got lots of tabs set up. I'll take you over to a blogging tab, for instance, where I've got, these are all sorts of blogs that I like to follow, okay? Some of them I just added and I haven't even looked at yet. But geolocal SEO, hyperlocal bloggers, St. Paul real estate. Here's another local one. I haven't just sort of sorted them out. But what it is each one of these little boxes is a blog, okay? And then it's going to display to me the most recent posts. If I want to read this post, all I got to do is click plus, and I can read this post right here. And so, as you can imagine, if I were to subscribe by email to every one of these blogs, or if I were to bookmark every one of these blogs, I would never get over there. I would, first of all, if they were emails coming to me, I would never be able to find a legitimate work email or a personal email, because I'd have a million emails in my box from these guys. And if I bookmarked all these, I wouldn't recognize that, oh, so and so has just published a new blog. I need to go check that out. But what I've specifically done is set up a McClellanville tab, and you can add little things like weather on it. I've got pictures of Flickr images which are tagged with the word McClellanville. I've got a map. Sure, those are all great. But what I've basically set up primarily here is that all these on the right side of the screen, and you can organize yours however you want, but all these on the right side of the screen are local blogs in my community. Some of them are mine, some of them are other businesses like the Arts Council. Okay, so I can check in here. I actually leave this open all day long, and I instantly can see, if I jump over here, I just sort of can scan this and say, oh, wait, chamber music, let me go and check this out and read this, okay? I've also added my Google Alerts on here. If you're not familiar with Google Alerts already, Google Alerts is an amazing tool where you can give Google a keyword and tell it, let me know anytime somebody publishes something. Basically, anytime Google comes across on its own radar the word or the phrase that you want it to, it can either email that to you, it can email you a list of all of them at the end of the day or once a week, I think, or you can create a feed out of these. And that's exactly what I've done. I've created a couple of Google Alerts, one for just for the names of cities that I work in, Ondal, McClellanville. I've also created ones for local resources like Francis Marion National Forest, which is just sort of a geographic area, Cape Romaine Wildlife Refuge. Um, and then I've even done some for like my local business, or for the name of my business and my name a different way, just to sort of watch a radar on what's going on about these keywords. Okay, and so that's what we're talking about when we talk about creating a. In fact, here's a new one here. I hadn't even seen. There's a kayak one that mentioned my website, so I need to jump over there and see what they're doing. But these are things that I look for on a daily basis. I just sort of skim this and see what's new in my neck of the world online. This, like I said, you still got to get out there and drive your car around, but this is a great resource. And this also doesn't pick up things on private forums like Facebook. Okay, so this doesn't cover everything. I still have to have a Facebook page. I still need to become friends with people in my community and do things like that. But this is a good resource for that is worth the time that it takes to set up. I don't know. Oh, I know what that is. Okay. So that's using Google Alerts and iGoogle, and I'll actually send you an email. A while back I created a YouTube video on how to set up that iGoogle account. That's why I didn't go into all the steps of setting that up. I'll send you a link to that video at the end of this class. And if you want to watch it, it's like a 5-minute video and shows you how it's probably me explaining it all over again, but it's also me explaining how to set it up. So that's part of this radar that we're talking about. Now let's talk specifically about those steps that I talked about. Adding value. Okay, some of the best resources that you can make in addition to the posts that you're going to write, you can set up some pages on your website. Create a map using Google Maps and embed it in there and actually map out landmarks and businesses in your community. Okay, that can be a really useful map for a lot of people. Create a local business page. You can create one that has all of these or one for each one of these. You might create just a page that's called McClellanville Restaurants, and you list, maybe you start off with just a simple list. All you do is you list the restaurants. Next week you go back in there and you dig up all of the addresses and the phone numbers for them. Next week you go in there and you put a little symbol for how much it costs, like $1, $2, $3, $4, depending on how pricey it is, and you say a couple of quick things about it, like outdoor seating, great for kids, call ahead, things like that, that people wanting to eat there want to know. And then maybe what you finally do, and you could do this step after this step also, but then you start writing a post once a month. Doesn't matter how often you do it, but once a month, once a week, whatever, you write a post about a local restaurant, okay? And then what you do is you go back in and you change the name of your the page that you've created, or not the page, excuse me. You change the name of the restaurant, so maybe it says Joe's Barbecue Shack. You underline the word Joe's Barbecue Shack and you link that to this post that you wrote. That way when somebody comes across this a year later, they can still go dig up your old article that you wrote about Joe's and find that. Okay? You can create this restaurant page. You can wait until you've already written about 5 of these restaurants, written posts about them, and then create the page, or you can create the page first like I talked about. There's no wrong order to do these in, and a lot of times that slows people down. They say, well, they just get this paralysis of analysis where they say, I can't create this page yet because I haven't written enough about local, restaurants or whatever. It doesn't matter. This is a page that's going to be an ongoing resource from here until the end of your blog, whenever you decide that that's what it's going to be, and you just continue to build and build and build on it. I actually get a lot of traffic from people searching for names of businesses specifically that don't have websites of their own, but I also get a lot from businesses that do have websites. But generally, if a business has its own website, it's going to show up number one for a lot of the terms that might drive people. So, for instance, if somebody does a search for, Joe's Barbecue Shack, and they've got their own website, that's going to show up number one. And it doesn't matter if you're number two. Most people are going to identify that Joe's Barbecue Shack probably has the information that they need on it. Okay. A calendar of events is an amazing tool to create on your website. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to constantly be adding these new events. But I would once again recommend Google's Calendar, which I utilize for maintaining all of my rentals. I've got like 7 or 8 different Google calendars that all just sort of lay over top each other, and I can always tell, when somebody's in a rental and who's scheduled to come into a rental and things like that. But you could also create one that's just a simple events calendar. And you may even give other people access to it. One of the really neat things about Google Calendars is you can allow other people to add and to edit it. And so maybe there's somebody at a local, for instance, my local arts council, my local church that's might always be doing something. Don't make it seem like it's just your personal stuff. Go out there and find other people in the community that might want to add their events, and you got to have that resource before you can convince people that it's worthwhile. But if they feel like, well, we really want this event to be successful, and if we try to put it on Daniel's website and it draws, an extra 10 people, then that would be worth the time that I'm putting into it. Now if they feel like it's not getting any results, then they're not going to continue to do that. So it might take you a little bit of training to do that, but it's a really great tool to have a calendar of events on your website. Contests, I call this the win-win-win, okay? And I'm going to give you an example of a contest which I personally did, okay? New business opens up in my community. I go out there, not on the grand opening. In fact, a lot of businesses have a soft opening before they have a grand opening. Okay, so I went out there before the grand opening, but it had been open for 5 or 6 days, and went in lunch hour when it wasn't super busy yet, and asked the waitress, is the owner in? Can you send them out? I let them know you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to complain on you. I just want to talk to them if they're not busy. The owner comes out. I tell them, hey, I'm Daniel Bates. It's nice to meet you. Hand him a business card and say, I don't know if you know it, but I've got a really popular blog in the community, and I wanted to, do you a favor and write an article about the new business. Is there anything you want me to add? And maybe they say something funny and you quote them on it, or maybe they say, no, we're just really excited. We're gonna start serving steaks for $10.99 each weekend or whatever. Just get some sort of quote from him or something that he wants. And when you've handed him your business card, you know that he's going to go home that night or the next day and look up your blog and check for this article. So, but what I specifically did was I said, I'd like to get you some exposure. If you're willing to give me a dinner, not me personally, but if you're willing to give up a dinner for two, and you can put a $50, cap on it, so they're not just like ordering all the drinks and stuff that they want, but a dinner for two, then I will raffle it all, not raffle it, I will give it away to a random subscriber on my website, and it'll get you exposure for a full month on my website, okay? And so I go home, I write one post about the new restaurant, I write another post about the contest that I'm running, and at the end of the month, the way that I did it was I just looked through I found out how many subscribers I had. So let's say I had 60 email subscribers, and the way that you entered that was to subscribe by email to the contest. I went and typed in random number generator, and I clicked it 1 through 60, and it shot out 38. So I skimmed down my list and found number 38, and I sent them an email saying, you've just won dinner for two at such and such restaurant, and can you please give me your name and permission to use your name? And so then I write a final article at the end of the month saying, congratulations to Joe Schmo, he just won dinner for two at such and such restaurant, and each one of those times I'm linking back to this old article. So the restaurant got great exposure for an entire month on my website. I got more subscribers because everybody loves a free meal, and one of my readers got a free meal out of it. So I call it a win-win-win situation with the contests. It takes a little bit of work for sure, but make it work for you. And again, tie it to something. If you want to tie it to Facebook, and make it a Facebook fan page, that would be a great way to do it. You know, but there's a whole separate thing that goes on with Facebook. Maybe I'll start talking about the idea of holding a contest on Facebook as well. But if don't just, I don't know, too many rules on Facebook for me to start talking about that. But that might be